Hi guys, Rex here. We're going to do a quick video, the SWFA Fix 10 versus the primary arms 4-14 first focal plane with the HUD reticle.
Did you hear that?
No, my ears ringing a little.
To be what you want me to be, to find I'm blind to me, to feel.
Two entirely different scopes for entirely different applications. Very similarly priced, but very differently configured, okay? In a very recent video we just posted, we talked about a budget rifle setup for under $1,000 that a guy could learn how to use in a hurry, and you wouldn't have to learn a lot of math or ballistics to be very effective for rapid target engagement. And in that video we talked about this Savage Model 10 over-the-counter rifle that you see in the foreground here, a very accurate rifle, and we talked about some of the inexpensive rings available for it, and we equipped it with this particular optic of choice for that application. As you see here, and if you've watched the Sniper 101 or the Extreme Long Range Precision Shooting videos, we have over 101 episodes just dedicated to that craft alone. You'll see a lot of the Super Sniper series optics, the straight 10 SWFA scopes, being pushed more in that application. So what's going on here? What's the difference between these two scopes? And doesn't Rex like this more than he likes this, or did he change his mind, or what's the deal? And so that brings us to a very good topic of conversation, which is something that maybe I should have explained a little better. Sometimes you assume that everyone knows exactly what you're talking about, and you neglect to cover some of that base work. There are some big fundamental differences in shooting applications when you're talking about designated marksman style applications and the traditional one shot, one kill precision rifle sniper applications. And what we're talking about there is in certain combat roles, if you're talking about it in those terms, or if you're even talking about hunting, the shooter's going to be under a certain degree of stress due to multiple targets popping up, such as in a designated marksman application. You can have multiple targets at unknown distances all moving, and you might have a very small amount of time to engage those targets in a panic scenario where you might be taking fire. In applications like that, working your way through a firing solution to make a real high precision shot using your standard ballistic tables that we show you how to use, your mil-dot masters and all this to calculate a firing solution and index that firing solution on a scope like this is going to really maybe not be the ideal way to go. This particular setup, when we're talking about the SWFA scope, this scope is configured in such a way to where the value of the scope has been concentrated into the turret mechanisms being semi-reliable. That's why this scope rocks so much at that application of fire. This thing has very reliable turret tracking mechanisms, which means that when you index this thing to a certain position and you come back down, it'll go the same place pretty much every time. And that's what you need in a high degree of precision rifle, where you're going to calculate very precise firing solutions and you can't really have a lot of error, and you need to make that shot on the first shot. And there's a lot of applications such as traditional sniper applications where the guy is going to invest a lot of time into a high value target. He might be 3 days or a week out in the field or weeks out in the field waiting for this target to present itself. And you can't miss, because once you miss, you're not going to have a second follow-up shot because the target is going to employ escape and evasion, okay? The target usually runs away once the bullet whizzes right past its face. So in applications like that, you're going to want to custom tailor a firing solution using your detailed ballistics and your calculator and all that stuff. And you're going to have this a lot of times predetermined when you're laying down in your final firing position, drawing up your range cards and things like that. You're not going to be completely clueless. You're going to anticipate where that target's going to present itself, and accordingly have a lot of your hasty firing solutions kind of half squared away, so that when the target does present itself in the target area that you already kind of anticipated, you're going to have a real close idea. You might already be dialed in. And then you can apply slight corrections for barometric pressure changes, ammo velocity changes, and all those little tiny details that are going to guarantee your level of precision for a high value target first round hit. So for those applications, for target shooting, for shooting paper at long range, or for traditional high precision sniper applications, I'd still think that indexing it in is the best way to go when you only have one shot. Now for total all-out World War III designated marksman applications, where you're going to be running around in an absolute panic and you're going to lose your calculator, you might lose your ballistic tables, or you might lose your mind and not be able to think, even if you have all those other tools at your disposal. Once your mind goes due to adrenaline, you're really behind the curve in terms of being able to remember all the science from before, right? And when we're talking about the traditional sniper applications, guys who are going to be employed with this setup, you're going to be in a position of absolute concealment and safety. So the adrenaline factor isn't near as much of an issue in most of those traditional applications of fire when you're talking sniper stuff, because you're going to be concealed. Unless you failed at your job, in which case you get drawn into a firefight, then you have to fall back on your gunfighting skills, okay? And then all that thinking business goes out the window and you just start shooting. That's when your spotter covers for you, and that's when you just start laying down hasty fire, okay? But for designated marksman applications, where or for even large game hunting, where you're going to be on patrol and you don't know where the target's going to present itself, you don't know if it's going to be 10 feet or 1,000 yards. And when it pops up, it's on the move, it already sees you and is shooting at you, you don't really have time to screw around and try to do any calculating. In those instances, an optic configured like this, where everything can be done in the reticle, your ballistic drop compensation is done in the reticle, your range estimation is done by bracketing the target using the denominations in the reticle, your wind hold-offs are drawn out in the reticle, and your target leads are drawn out in the reticle. That's where an optic like this with the reticle design has its value. This optic really inherently doesn't possess a lot of value in terms of super high quality, because if you think about it, being the same price point as the SWFA, but having all the fancy features like the variable power and the first focal plane reticle and illumination, a lot of those resources went away from making the mechanisms very precise and just went towards configuring the optic in an affordable fashion that could be placed on the market for under $300. So the inherent quality of the build of the SWFA being a much more simple design, a fixed power scope with no zoom assembly built into it, no variable power to worry about, is a lot easier to get done in a precise manner for the same amount of money as it is in a optic with a more complex configuration like a variable scope. That being said, I would not recommend this scope for applications where you would have to rely on turret tracking, where you're going to do a super high precision shot on a high value target at extreme long range. It might be a very small target. If you don't have a follow-up shot and you have something going on where you would be compelled to use the turrets to index in to get a real precise hold off or to get a real precise firing solution, this might not be the best way to go. These turrets are pretty good in terms of sporting optics. It's not going to give you the same level of tracking precision as the SWFA. However, the reticle in the primary arms is where the gold is. And that reticle is going to get you through a really, really sketchy situation a lot easier than it would be trying to figure out how to range your target with your mills, dialing in your solution. This thing is going to be an on-the-fly designated marksman applications type scope, okay? This is going to be more of a fighting scope, okay? For example, if you're attached to an infantry unit that is probably going to engage in a gunfight and you're going to be involved in that, you're going to have to lay down the precision fire in multiple targets. A reticle like this is going to be a lot better than a reticle like this. And a setup where you're going to have to dial it in or even hold off in terms of mil dots because you're going to have to remember your ballistics. This deal is for dudes in a hurry who don't really have the mental capacity anymore to calculate anything. Once adrenaline kicks in, you got tunnel vision, you're not going to remember how to add 2 plus 2. You're just going to remember muscle memory. You're going to use the reticle, and it's going to be a muscle memory type equation that's going to happen when you do your holdovers and your holdoffs. So this reticle facilitates more efficient use for a target-rich environment with multiple targets potentially or movers at medium ranges where absolute precision isn't required, but quick deadly fire is required on a large target like a dude, okay? Precision applications, the SWFA wins out. So for the series in Sniper 101, or the long range series was probably a better name for it, where we talk about the basics of the sniper craft, which is extreme long range precision shooting, the SWFA Super Sniper is very hard to beat for 300 bucks because in those applications you're going to be dialing it in. You're going to have to get your firing solution very precise so that you can hit exactly what you're shooting at on the first shot. If that's not an issue, and you got more targets than this other scope. So it's two totally different applications of fire, and that's something a lot of folks maybe don't think of when they're thinking about a long-range scope. It totally depends on what you anticipate using it for. So for classical sniper applications, one shot, one kill, SWFA hands down. For a target-rich environment, designated marksman applications, hence the DMR part on the optic here, the primary arms with the HUD reticle, the HUD DMR reticle, wins hands down. So it's really a matter of application, and I hope that that helps clear it up for you quite a bit.
But she hits me, disassembles my leg. So I went to the doctor and he gave me a pain. Now she waits, slumber, dreaming, hope that she